Hi, everyone. We're going to continue talking about American imperialism today by talking about the reasons for the Spanish American War. And we're going to start with something called yellow journalism. And let's just talk about what that is. So, yellow journalism is eye catching, exaggerated, sensationalistic, scandalous, dramatic, not concerned with the facts. It might be related to what you sometimes see on the internet. You're looking through for a YouTube video and you see something that catches your eye, but then you click it and there's not a lot to it, or it's not that good. So we call this clickbait, or an article online that tries to get you to click it so they can make revenue. That's what yellow journalism is. It's today it's modern day clickbait. Back then it's well, we're going to look at an example of it. Another modern day version of yellow journalism is this. So if you ever go down the grocery aisles in some stores, not the aisles, if you ever check out at the grocery store, you sometimes see these big explosive looking magazines that make crazy claims. This one says Obama's secret enemies list. Oprah only has 3 years to live. Girl eats 4,000 washing up sponges. The queen is dying. And there's all sorts of other things that are happening there. When you see these, are they eye-catching? Definitely. Are they scandalous, sensationalistic? Definitely. Are they highly exaggerated? Most likely. They're not really concerned with the facts. When you see these, you probably don't think that they're that true, but something about it might make you want to read it if you are into any of these celebrities or figures. This is yellow journalism, and the goal of yellow journalism is not to care about the facts, but to get you to buy more papers. Just like the goal of clickbait isn't to produce a good video or a good article that keeps your attention. It's to get you to click it, to produce revenue. So it's all about making money. It's all about selling more newspapers. That's what yellow journalism is. Now we have to go back to the late 1800s to see what yellow journalism looked back then. So let's take a look. So it all starts where we have this ship that blows up in Cuba. It's a United States ship, which we call the U.S.S. U.S.S. Maine, or the United States ship Maine. So it blows up off the coast of Havana, Cuba, and we're going to look at two articles. I'm going to quickly read them, and you think about which one's yellow journalism. Let's look at Article A. Destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy. In Havana, Cuba, the warship Maine was destroyed by a bomb, and 250 men were killed on purpose by the Spanish. This newspaper is offering a $50,000 reward for evidence that will convict whoever is responsible. The suspicion that the Maine was purposely, blown up grows stronger every hour. Now let's look at Article B. Divers will inspect the ship to find out whether the explosion was from outside or inside. The warship Maine was destroyed in Havana Harbor last night. Captain Shuley, who knows a great deal about warships, did not entertain the idea that the Maine was destroyed by the Spanish or on purpose. He believed it is more likely that the fires from the coals within the ship likely became so hot that the heat blistered the steel wall of the ship, causing an explosion. Captain Shuley did not believe the Spanish nor Cubans in Havana had either the information nor the equipment necessary to blow up the Maine while it was under military guard. The facts are not all known until a full report is released. Now, which one sounds like yellow journalism? Which one sounds more eye-catching and sensationalistic, exaggerated? Well, if you said Article A, you'd be right. So Article A is saying they know who did it. It's the Spanish. They did it. Did they offer evidence? No, they're actually asking for evidence. So they're making a claim without even having evidence. And they're using big figures like $50,000 reward, trying to get people's eyes like, hey, this is a lot of money. The Spanish killed us. killed Americans that were on that ship. So on, so on. It's making explosive claims. It's exaggerated. Article B has speculation, but it says the facts aren't all known yet. It has a credible source, which is a naval captain, and it gives a scenario which may be likely, but says it may or may not be true. This is a credible source. This one is not. Therefore, it's yellow journalism. Okay, so these events of the U.S.S. Maine is the primary reason the United States is going to go to war with Spain. And we're going to look a little more on it in just a second. But before we do that, we need to know why the U.S.S. Maine was even in Havana Harbor, even in Cuba. Why was the U.S. over there? Well, let's get into it. So what was happening was there was a Cuban Revolution going on. Cuba wanted to be independent. They wanted to be their own country. But guess who owned Cuba at this time in the late 1800s? Spain did. And Spain wants to desperately hold on to all of their remaining territories. They had countries like Cuba. They had Puerto Rico, the Philippines. And Spain wanted to hold on to this. These were their territories that they acquired through imperialism. And the Cubans wanted to be independent, so they started a revolution, a rebellion that got violent, and Spain viciously would try to stop them from becoming their own country. So what ends up happening is, and this is ignored a lot through history, is the Spain actually set up concentration camps. And we usually think about concentration camps with regards to World War II and the Nazis. And these concentration camps are largely ignored and deserve a little more attention. So Cubans that are put in these camps are, many of them starve to death. They're brutally treated. They're not given basic necessities. And so many Cubans are going to die. Some will be hung from trees, which you can call lynching in a sense. It's pretty much what it is. And brutally treated to try to warn others not to take part in these rebellions. You see here a poet is sitting in a pile of bones, which are at a concentration camp for these Cubans. And in total, the world estimates that, well, historians estimate that 500,000 Cubans were sent to these camps, and nearly 100,000 of them died to mostly disease or not torture, disease, hunger, dehydration, that type of thing, as you see in this picture, starvation. Many were tortured, many were straight up murdered. So this was a terrible event, and Americans saw that this was happening, and many of them decided that Cuba, it's pretty close to America. It's right in the Caribbean, in the Gulf Coast, and they called on the United States to get involved and stop Spain from doing this, to get involved and help the Cubans. But the president at the time, William McKinley, is going to resist those calls for some time. And that's when we get into the yellow journalism and the U.S.S. Maine blowing up United States ship. So like we said, the Maine is sent to try to evacuate any Americans off the island and kind of show support in a sense. We're not fighting fighting the Spanish there, but kind of throwing our weight around a little bit, saying the U.S. sees what's happening and we don't support it, but we're also evacuating Americans off of the island. But then the Maine blows up and many sailors are killed. And here's what some of the newspapers look like. The New York Journal, which is still around the day, says the destruction of the warship Maine was the work of an enemy. $50,000 reward. The explosion of the warship was not an accident. And it's really eye-catching. So that, again, is yellow journalism. The goal was to sell papers. And the people that were writing these articles and selling these newspapers didn't care about the facts. They just wanted to make money, which convinced Americans to support America joining this war. And go against Spain and help the Cubans. And Americans all over the country started chanting and rallying for America to join this war, saying, remember the Maine, to hell with Spain. And that is where we will end. These are the main reasons for why the United States joined this war and started a very quick war with Spain. And we'll talk about the war in Spain in the next one. All right, guys. Thank you.